A group calling itself People Against Petrol and Paraffin Increases is planning to shut down some of the country's roads in protest of another record high fuel price hike. Earlier in July, the organisation says the rate at which petrol prices were increasing is having a profound impact on taxpayers. Visvin Reddy is from PAPPPI and he's here in studio to tell us more about their protest. Visvin, thanks for coming in. Welcome to Morning Live again.
Thank you very much, Leanne, and good morning to your listeners.
So you threatened this previously, but you called that off. So what's happening now?
Absolutely. Protest action in any form has to be seen as a last resort. You try negotiations, you use diplomacy, and you try to engage with the authorities first. This is extremely important. We got to act responsibly. And one of the things that we did in the last protest action was to engage the office of the president. In the very last minute, the office had contacted us and set up a meeting. So we met with officials from the presidency and we put up our case, our solutions to the problem that we face with fuel, and that discussions are ongoing. We're currently in negotiations with the Department of Energy. However, our members are of the view that while we are negotiating with government, it is important that the President issues a moratorium on all future increases, because economists predict that our fuel prices will be increasing steadily in the next few months. And this is going to have a disastrous effect on our local economy and on the people of this country. For example, yesterday we celebrated Women's Day. It was not much of a celebration for women in this country because bread prices went up yesterday. Many people don't know this, but Premier Foods issued a statement that said that its brown bread will be going up by 40 cents a loaf, and white bread would be going up by 45 cents a loaf. And this is as a direct result of the fuel price increases, because fuel prices have went up 32% on average year on year for the past few years. And in the past year alone, we've had 5 increases in fuel prices. And this is having a serious effect on poor people in the country. And I need to mention that in South Africa, we have 55% of our population who live below the breadline, who are living in poverty, 14 million of which are living in abject poverty. So every fuel price increase of even 1 cent has an effect on them. We need to be sincere about helping the poor people in this country. One looks at the Freedom Charter, for example. It says that the wealth of the land shall be shared by the people. And here in South Africa, we have a wonderful solution which we want the government to implement.
What is the solution?
That solution is on SASOL. Now, we saw a march recently by the DA and OUTA calling for a 20% reduction in the taxes we pay. We pay 38% in our fuel prices that goes to taxes. Now, we're not talking about the tax component. We are talking about the actual fuel costs. In South Africa, we produce fuel. We're a fuel-producing country. We have SASOL, which was formed in 1950 by the apartheid government to mitigate against possible sanctions from the outside world. That SASOL is producing fuel in this country. In fact, it supplies 1/3 of our country's needs, and it provides fuel to neighboring countries. That's one of the reasons why you are able to get fuel in Namibia, for example, at less than 10 rand a litre, and that fuel comes from South Africa. So if our government had to look at the solution of SASOL, we would be able to provide our people here with fuel at less than 10 rand a litre if we deregulate the price of fuel in the country, and we look at SASOL as being our preferred supplier.
Have you approached SASOL? Have you ever heard from them? Because you've been very vocal against them.
Absolutely. SASOL is not the people we should be targeting here. It is the government, because the government regulates the prices of fuel. If a few years ago, people heard of Raymond Ackerman from Pick n Pay. He wanted to sell fuel at a lower price, but he was charged by the government. He was not allowed to do it. So government regulates the price of fuel in the country through the Central Energy Fund. So targeting the fuel companies is not going to help us. We want the government to re-look at its pricing strategy. It has a body called the Central Energy Fund that regulates the price of fuel that we pay. The Central Energy Fund needs to deregulate the price of fuel so that SASOL can be reduced. Currently, SASOL is reportedly making a profit of 100 million rands a day. that's going to its directors and its owners, when that money can be going into the South African economy to benefit the people of this country. So that's a workable solution. We want the government to look at that as a means of going forward. And we believe that currently the government uses only the rate of exchange of the rand dollar and the value of crude oil as a criteria to determine the fuel price increases. That should not be the case.
Yeah, I know that if in fact we've spoken about it before, and that petrol should never even be above 10 rand. It should be below
Absolutely.
that with eliminating all of the taxes.
Yes.
By calculations, what are we looking at next month? Are we going up again?
Well, if you look at the price of crude oil currently, and you look at the rand-dollar exchange, and that's the two factors that the government is using to determine the price of fuel, I believe that fuel prices will be going up. And this has been confirmed by the AA as well, that fuel prices will be going up. And that is the reason why there is a need and there's an urgency for South Africans to stand up and to make this point known to government that the majority of us will not accept these increases.
So talk to me about your protest action, because that was sort of where we were leading to with everything you're saying. Just quickly wrap it up for me. When are you hoping to do this protest? On
Monday, the 13th of August.
Okay.
There will be national protests throughout the country in the form of stayaways. We're calling on people who support the campaign, and there's literally millions of them in the country.
How do you know that?
Well, if you look at the responses we're getting on social media, the responses we're getting literally hundreds of thousands of people supporting the campaign. We've got structures in all provinces, and our structure members from these structures are vocal about it. They're speaking about what people are saying. Just this morning at the hotel I was at, people were saying that something needs to be done about the fuel price increases. And the world does not change for the better because we talk. Yeah. The world changes for the better because we do. So on Monday there will be marches. In Durban, there's going to be a march from King Dinizulu Park to the City Hall, where a memorandum is going to be handed over. In Cape Town, there's going to be marches and demonstrations at all key points. SABC, at the Department of Energy offices, there's a march planned also in Cape Town. In Johannesburg, there's picket demonstrations. So throughout the country, there will be some form of demonstration where people are going to express the way they feel about these increases. And the timing is quite perfect, Leanne. You know, we're coming to an election next year, and people are asking, what are political parties doing? What commitment are they giving? And I'm glad to say that ever since we started the campaign, parties like the African National Congress, the Inkatha Freedom Party, the COPE, DA, the BLF, the NPA, these are all organizations that have indicated in some way or the other that they support our cause, that they want fuel prices to come down. Now, we are telling them that their members in Parliament have the key to unlock the solutions to bring fuel prices down in the country.
All right, so you say 13th, Monday the 13th. We'll have to watch on that, because I know that this threat has been made before. July the 2nd, you brought it out. It was much smaller than anticipated. Then there was a call when it was meant to be happening on a Friday when we chatted, and that was aborted at the 11th hour. Now you're saying Monday. The reality is that it causes chaos in South Africa, and people really start worrying. Like, what do we do? I believe there's going to be a shutdown. I wonder if our people are going to come to work and this and that. So you talk about millions of people doing this, and yet when push comes to shove, it doesn't happen. So it is also a scare tactic for a lot of South Africans. So will you be talking more through the weekend so that we can actually understand whether or not it is going to happen?
Absolutely. I want to make it very clear. I serve on a committee. We have a national structure, and our members are clear that this Monday, the 13th of August, we are going ahead with our protest action. There's no way that that's going to change. We have suspended all discussions with government departments until we get a clear instruction from the government that fuel prices will not be increased while we engage with them around finding workable solutions to bring the price of fuels down. So there's no way we're backing down on this. Monday, you can expect mass protests throughout the country.
All right, Visvin Reddy from PAPPPI talking to us about the fuel increases, saying it's unacceptable, and they're going to be taken to the streets to protest against these increases and the debilitating effect it's having on South Africans.